Welcome back, and Captain Bish Johnson joins me now. He is a former U.S. Army official and national defense and security strategist. He joins me now on the program. Thank you for joining me, Captain Bish Johnson.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
Now, what do we know about this firm, DCI, and is it as important as the objective of this $9 million lobbying contract?
Well, okay. Yes, DCI is a political lobbying group in the Washington, D.C. area. It's more or less, it's not, it's somehow in the middle, you know, in what we call beltway politics. I think I've pointed this out in one of my appearances before. That's what is called the beltway politics in the Washington, D.C. area. So where you have some firms that are professionals in lobbying government officials to move policy towards one direction or the other. You know, so they're usually aligned to the Republican Party or they're aligned to the Democratic Party, and then you have some that are somewhere in the middle. And DCI happens to be one of those that are somehow in the middle. I've had to interface with DCI in the past. You know, so I have a little bit of understanding of the lobbying firm called the DCI.
Now that we know that we have a fair idea of what, you know, who this company is or, you know, what they do, how important is this objective, that is to promote Nigeria's security efforts back home, particularly to protect Christian population? And of course, let's not lose sight of the fact that this comes on the heels of the redesignation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. What we know is that the Nigerian government prior to this had pushed back on the narrative being promoted in the U.S. that Christian populations are being targeted, saying not at all. Indeed, what is happening is both Christians and Muslims are being killed, not just one particular religious sect being targeted. So isn't this attempt misleading, you know, against what it originally represents or what its own position on that narrative is back home?
Well, I don't know what was presented to the U.S. government, but I do by the lobbying firm. But I do know that Nigeria has maintained the position that you so clearly stated, that what is going on in Nigeria is not religious persecution. Rather, what has been going on in Nigeria has been, you know, terrorists killing both Christians and Muslims. So I have an understanding of what exactly DCI did for Nigerian government. I can't tell you which position was presented to the government. But what I can tell you is that based on the outcome, because we, you know, we all read from the U.S. President Donald Trump. We all heard from him what he stated that he was about to do in Nigeria, military intervention. But because that did not happen, instead what happened was what was put out in the public as a coordinated operation between the Nigerian government and the U.S. government. And so based on that, I would say that, you know, probably that was what was presented to the U.S. government.
So let's also talk about another leg of it. This comes, you know, ahead of announcement by plans by the Nigerian plans by the Nigerian government for the newly appointed ambassadors to resume duty at their different locations. Now, isn't this, you know, contract awarded to a U.S. firm? Isn't it evidence of that gap that has been, you know, left unfilled for a very long time? A sort of outsourcing of what really should be, you know, a diplomatic effort by, you know, U.S. mission, a Nigerian mission in the U.S. abroad.
Not exactly. I've listened to a lot of political poetry and commentary on this particular issue. You see, this is where Africans are losing the whole international politics. And that's why everything about Africa in the West is projected to be negative, because African governments are not doing what other governments are doing. This lobbying thing is something that is very legal in the United States. The fact that the US government gives $3 billion of military assistance to the Israeli government did not come by chance. These things come by years of lobbying groups. As a matter of fact, in the Beltway, which is what the Washington, D.C. political space is called, is Beltway. In the Beltway, you have American Israel Public Affairs Committee, IPAC. Is a political lobby group that is focused on influencing U.S. federal policy towards Israel, including military aid, security cooperation, and influencing their lawmakers to even make laws that are, sympathetic to the Israeli government and Israeli people. So when you go to Washington, D.C., there are so many lobbying groups by so many different countries that are, in addition to their foreign their embassies and their foreign missions in the Washington, D.C., these lobbying firms are busy lobbying the lawmakers and various officials in the United States to influence U.S. policy positively towards their country. So it is not something that is different. I have once spoken on this particular subject matter as far back as 3 or 4 years ago. It is something that we must do. We must have to learn how to play that Beltway politics if we want favorable policies coming out of Washington, D.C. And it shouldn't be limited to Washington, D.C. I am thinking that we should also expand this thing to even the European Union, to UK, to France. We should have, lobbying presence in some of all these highly influential countries, including China and Russia. So that way, at the end of the day, we will have a favorable policy towards our country. It's not by chance that Israel is always favored by the United States. It's a lot of hard work, lobbying work by various lobbying groups, influencing the minds of lawmakers and other government officials, including American citizens. And so this is one area that we have been lagging behind, and that area that we must have to buckle up and do what other people are doing.
Well, if you say that it is in line with global best practice, the objective seen in what the contract is and the official position of Nigerian government back home, which is, look, it's not just Christians that are being targeted. Both issues are at variance. You ask the U.S. lobby group to do one thing, but your position back home is different. But if you say that, okay, this is in line with international best practice, and we must do this to improve, our standing with our global partner abroad, is it too soon to begin to expect, outcomes, positive outcomes? And I say this for good reason. U.S.-Nigeria relations, especially under the Trump administration, has not been the best in recent times. You could, list the number of negative immigration stance of the U.S. government towards Nigeria. The latest being the suspension of, visa issuance to Nigerian citizens. So how soon should we begin to see the gains of this image laundering contract that has been awarded to DCI beyond even, the projected objective?
Well, let me tell you, this thing is not a one-off something. I believe that this particular contract was for a specific objective, which, we can say that maybe the lobbying firm has achieved, because America is not intervening militarily in Nigeria right now. And so this thing is something that has to be sustained over a period of time. It has to be a culture, a practice. Anybody can go to Washington, D.C. and inquire about what I'm telling you right now. If you go to the Beltway in Washington, D.C., you're going to see a whole lot of these firms that are lobbying the U.S. government to have positive policies towards certain interest group or countries and all that. Now, this is not for me to stay here and justify. I don't know the process that was used in this particular instance. I don't know why DCI was chosen. I don't know the process that was used. I don't know the terms of their contracts. I am just speaking as an outsider, but I'm telling you my experience based on what I know about lobbying in the Beltway and Beltway politics. It's a politics that you must have to play if you want to get favorable outcomes from Washington, D.C. It's very rampant everywhere in Washington, D.C. Everybody knows all these things. And so Yeah, to answer your question, it's not a one-off something. It's something that has to be sustained, and it must not be government-driven. Some of all these lobbying groups are not even government-affiliated. These are private, entities and NGOs that are in the Washington D.C. area that are lobbying the government for one interest or the other. Then all of them they're not always or must not be government-affiliated. And it doesn't matter whether you have ambassadors or not. The ambassadors will be doing their own thing through their official mechanisms and official lives. But these people are people that go, behind the doors to do one or two things. So yeah, and then you can't judge, you can't use this particular administration to conclude whether anything is successful or productive, because the Trump administration is a very disruptive and unpredictable administration. You can see what he is currently doing with his traditional allies, the Europeans and the UK, where he has threatened to impose tariffs on them for disagreeing with him over Greenland. So we can't use this one administration to conclude whether it is productive or not.
All right, but there's also that concern back home that a whopping $9 million is being spent on, a lobbying firm where we have serious security issues back home, especially with a deficit, in the welfare for our own officers. But we must anchor at this point. I don't want you to respond to that. There'll be another opportunity when we have time to expand on this topic. We must thank you very much for coming on the program. I have been talking with Captain Bish Johnson, former U.S. officer and, of course, national and defense military strategist. Thank you for your time and your expertise.
Thank you for having me.
And this is where we drop the anchor on the program today. Thank you for being there. I'll be back again same time next week, bringing you Political Paradigm. Of course, standing in for your regular anchor, Terry Kumi. Bye for now.